know sacrifice and I know pain. Omnics Mutants Raiders, many I'd slay. Dunkirk Town is my domain, and when I'm done, none of this will remain. There will be a reckoning!
Hello world, welcome to The Reckoning, where I'ma tell you what I reckon about who's a mutant, who's a cyborg, who can use the iris, what the damn fox says, the whole shebang when it comes to the Overwatch lore. So, thanks to the Junker Queen finally just saying the damn word, I recently realised that there's far more mutants in the Overwatch cast than I'd initially thought. And so we're here today to celebrate our mutant friends, and set ourselves up for future discussion on some of the even weirder elements of the Overwatch universe. Which brings us to the tier list that I'm going to use to categorise our various characters, working on a sliding scale that goes from roughly most to least human. Not that that indicates any kind of value. And so, a good place to start explaining these would then be with good old boring ass humans. I hopefully don't need to explain these to you. They are worthy of love and respect just like any other being. They just don't have any superpowers and are entirely fleshy. We then come to cyborgs, which are rather obviously not entirely fleshy, as they all have permanent cybernetic augmentations or even full-on prosthetics, some of which basically give them superpowers. And so, with superpowers in mind, we move on to the aforementioned inspiration for this video, mutants. Now, mutants here shouldn't be taken as per something like X-Men. As within the universe of X-Men, mutant is a pretty specific term for beings with inherent superpowers that are produced through a natural genetic mutation. Whereas in Overwatch, a mutant actually tends to mean a being that has been forcefully, passively, or willingly mutated through genetic manipulation, usually within their lifespan, and again, resulting in forms of superpowers. That is the definition that I will be using here for mutants at the very least. We then come on to an even harder group to define, sort of, the final human-based group that I really do have to make separate from mutants, the altered. And I'm just gonna put the two characters that fit there right now. This group is clearly way beyond just genetic manipulation that we see in a bunch of other characters. These two right here are affected differently by the fundamental physical laws of the Overwatch universe. Those two things are not the same as far as concerned, but this isn't like the last that we'll be discussing of this group. We are going to come back to them regarding some other characters later. We will explore these two a little bit more, but that's after we've covered the top tiers, which are for all of our mechanical brethren. So the first category we have here is for robots, automatons with limited to basically no personal agency. There is some delineation to explore there. And then we have Omnics, sentient machines who are obviously distinct from humans, but also not dissimilar. The next tier then is for any of those Omnics that we have seen potentially using the powers of the Iris. Yes, there is more than one character to go in this line. I'm not going to find them right now. You know who it is that we know, right? Finally, we then have the least human or the least physical type of being in the Overwatch universe, the pure AI, or any mechanical entity that lacks inherent physical form. So, these are the categories. Hopefully they will become even clearer as we start filling them with characters. And as a final note, before we actually really get stuck into this, to make this tier list, categorization framework, whatever you want to call it, every ability that we've seen in-game or in lore, I'm considering as canonically possible. I may have to extrapolate some stuff every now and again, but I won't be considering any ability as purely representative. So if Tracer can fuck with time, Lucio can heal people with music. That seems the fairest way by me to make this actually all work cohesively. So, if I missed anyone interesting, let me know in the comments. Without further ado, let's dig in with our first candidate in Anna. Anna's an interesting one. She used to be a cyborg. Widow shot her cybernetic eye out. The Egyptian military supposedly equipped all of their most prominent snipers with cybernetic eyes, but in Anna's Legacy comic, she does seem to refer to it as a singular cybernetic eye, and it's the one she uses with a scope and theoretically she would then keep the other eye unaugmented to be able to scope a wider field of view normally. I think that's actually a very sensible way for that to work. So yeah, Anna has changed category within her lifetime, which, okay, a ton of characters will have gone from human to mutant. Well, never mind, we'll come back to that. Oh, wow, everyone's confusing from the very beginning. Anubis, okay, you're not too bad. Here, obviously shown with a physical sort of containment body, if you will, but Anubis, as we see in Farah's comic, is equipped to be able to spread its own mind, its own being, into the bodies of other Omnics. This is a being that has no inherent physical form, and being one of the few god AI, yes, I'm going to use that term, this thing is one of the most, like, non-human entities within the Overwatch universe, all told. Okay, still not human, but definitely a different thing to be exploring here. The Horizon Lunar Colony. Apes, other mammals that were taken on board to be genetically engineered. As per Winston, as per Hammond, we'll come to them when we come to them. There has been one, I think, ape named particularly recently. It's a name that we'd seen in their specimen list before, but the ape Hypatia is one that's been brought up in voice lines between Hammond and Winston, possibly a character that might turn up later to be important. See, this is also a part of why we're doing this list, to have a look at some loose dangling threads and any interesting little plot beats. Ashe. Very normal, standard human. I don't think there are any augmentations on her part at all. She's pure au naturel, if you will. Athena. Pow! Another AI. Not seen to have the similar sort of powers that Anubis has, but if you take the idea that she speaks to us from the Orca dropships, that's potentially her extending her being into another physical framework other than Watchpoint Gibraltar. Yeah, the AI beings are pretty weird. Oh dear. I say that, and then I pick possibly the literally weirdest being in the Overwatch universe. This is Aurora. Let's get the Iris up in here while we can. The Iris isn't AI. It is. It's composed purely of all the minds of all Omnics. It was spawned out of Aurora's transcendence. It's like a singularity AI formed of AIs. It is Omnic instrumentality. It is the universe perceiving itself. It is the all in the one in the all. It's also a sci-fi magic system. It's ridiculous. Yeah, the Iris is going at the top of AI non-physical beings, because this is simultaneously all Omnics and a power source for their powers and potentially its own being and thing in its own right. Yeah, okay, so we started off really complicated by going alphabetically. Fuck. Aurora is the first Omnic to have used, technically to have used the Iris. She is the Omnic that essentially became, or is the progenitor to what became the Iris. She gave all Omnic sentience, and that fed back in on itself to form this. You could also argue, as if she supposedly turned into white golden light, that she's no longer physical, like she definitely is no longer physical. We'll put Aurora in Iris users to sort of make a bit of a clearer delineation about who she was when she was Aurora. She's probably not exactly Aurora anymore. Baptiste. Even as an ex-Talon operative, I don't think there's anything suggested about him ever being genetically augmented, and I don't think he has any replacement parts either. He's a very handsome man. He grew all his muscles himself. He does his hair himself. Man's doing well, but man's just man's. Absolutely cool. Bars. The Omnic sniper from the Deadlock gang. Recently confirmed as female, which, if you're able to choose a gender for yourself, whether that fits with the sex that your body has been predetermined to have or not, if you're able to choose, that suggests, like, a degree of agency, right? That is where the separation really comes between Omnics and robots here. I hate the word robot. It comes from, like, some European translation of the word slave. It's not a nice word. I don't like them using it for any of the, what I would refer to as Omnics. But there are some beings in the universe that are much more clearly defined as robots. Damn. Yeah, no. Bastion's an Omnic. Theoretically, when he actually wakes up in the last Bastion, he's still actually probably closer to this. He's still working purely off programming. And then whether he evolves his own, their own its. Yeah, we've been calling it it. No, their. Bastion's degree of self-agency, their sense of what they feel and like and would do and want, etc., has emerged, whether that's directly a result of this, which, yeah, kind of, probably, but it also seems to be influenced just by their surroundings, by their interpretation of the world around them. Bastion, I would say, is an Omnic, not a robot. Okay, time to get controversial. Have fun with that one, everybody. No, okay, I should obviously re-clarify. This Iris uses is going to largely be for characters that we know have used the Iris, in bunny quotes, right? There are a few characters who have done things that are so particularly weird and unexplainable as far as we would know them, that it makes it basically guaranteed that they're using the Iris. Bob gets blown up and he doesn't die. I'm just going to leave you with that. We even had Mondatta. Can I find my... No, I don't want to move this. Okay. We know that Omnics can die. There we go. Lady. Lady is pretty determinately an Omnic who died. There's a whole bit about it with my girl Iggy. We'll just throw up here as well. Let's get Lizzie in here as well. Pow! Iggy has a whole bit at Lady's funeral about how there is a limited number of Omnics. Yeah. And that they can die. Whatever you want to argue about the nature of a soul or whatever, death is a thing that Omnics can experience. And both Lady and Mondatta, who's down here somewhere. Can I actually grab him? We can! Whee! Mondatta in there. Separate them by alive and dead, I guess, maybe? No, that's cruel. Mondatta and Lady. No, let's actually do that. I think that's actually a pretty sensible idea. Let's go like that. Emerging consciousness. Dead Omnics. Just to make the point that death is an important concept that they're exploring with Omnics and potentially the Iris and stuff, right? Anyone who's read Hunter x Hunter and knows about things like post-mortem Nen, and if you've noticed how the Iris... Yeah, no, we won't get into that. Bob, theoretically, as far as concerned, is using the Iris. He has used Ashe as a conduit to link himself permanently to the existential plane, that as long as Ashe lives, so does Bob. You can kill Bob as many times as you want. He has Revenant superpower, and that you can kill him and it doesn't matter. He won't die until you reach a very specific condition. But that's obviously headcanon for now. There has not been a single thing that has said Bob uses the Iris. Bob can't die. But hey, come on, use some inference. Like, how else would you explain it? If we don't do that, then this whole exercise can get maybe a little boring, you know? Brigitte. Human? I think so. I don't think she definitely doesn't have any permanent cybernetics. She doesn't seem to have undergone any particular mutation. There's nothing too odd about her. I'm pretty confident we can put Brigitte in human, along with D.Va and the MEKA squad. There is one interesting one here, who I don't think it is the case, but Overlord being sort of like a drone controller, I think it would be quite interesting to give him some kind of like neural implants to step up his game, especially now that in the Overwatch canon, by the end of New Blood, D.Va has kind of left MEKA. She hasn't left, she's out on loan, if you will, to Overwatch, but she's not around anymore, or she won't be around as often for the MEKA squad, which to me would give some of them some excuses to maybe step their game up a little. But I think as it stands, it is quite a good idea to have all of them be pure humans using their mech technology and their own sort of delineated skills to fight back for what they stand for. That's great. Doomfist. Doomfist is a cyborg on like multiple levels. I'm pretty confident one of his arms has been essentially rebuilt. One of his hands is a gun. One of his arms interfaces with the Doomfist. The guy owns a cybernetics company. Like, he even has an inbuilt shield generator. Like, the guy sort of turns kinetic motion into, like, kinetic force around his body. Man's pretty damn cybernetic, Jesus. Yeah, I'm putting her in Omnic. She's not a robot. She is her own being. And a big chunk of the being that she is this person. I'm gonna do that. Yeah? Controversial. Because, yeah, Dr. Liao is a human. We know that. We don't need to address that. In terms of what Echo is, who she is, her conceptual categories of how she experiences the world are based on this person. This person doesn't exist anymore, but they still exist as an Echo in a metaphysical or even code form, if you want, to be this person. The Overwatch universe is pretty nuts when you think about it, man. I'm leaving her there because that's a way more interesting way to display this kind of table. Iffy. Yeah, pretty standard. She's a human. I don't think there's anything else that really needs to be said about that. She's just a normal... Okay, she's not a normal little girl. She's like a 6-year-old genius or something crazy like this. I always forget how old she is. Iffy's doing very well. And hey, that's to show you some of the upper limits of humans, maybe. Impressive, hey? Shit. This thing. Well, you're going up there. I mean, I'd even do maybe like that. That, like... This could be an early iteration of this. Well, we could also, you know, it's a machine controlled by humans. That's a way more interesting avenue for me. I think that's way cooler. I'm going to stick with Sombra's mysterious eye being like either a further AI or some kind of delineation of the iris, like an early version of it emerging in the late or sort of the end of the Omnic Crisis. That being said about the end of the Omnic Crisis and emerging sentience and all that sort of shtick, while Echo is obviously based on Liao, I'm calling her an Omnic rather than like a robot of Liao, in that she's like, she understands her own like philosophy really well. Like, she's exploring these really strange existential concepts as someone with the information to explore it, but not the sort of personal mental acuity to have gone through it. Echo's a mad fucking being, man. She is becoming her own person based on this one, but how much of this does she agree with? That's a really interesting conundrum to come up in the future, right? Echo is essentially Overwatch's iteration on a simulacrum, with all that entails. See, again, that's a big part of why we're putting this list together. Ooh! Oh, man, these are actually... This is hard. So difficult, in fact, that this bit of the video originally came to 10 whole minutes just on its own. I made a video inside a video. So I've cut that whole chunk out, and I'm going to upload it separately, so that right now, I can just throw my ultimate theory about the 5 metal demons and the feral Omnics right in your face. The curse of the 5 metal demons seems to have been the proliferation of feral Omnics, which was halted by their defeat at the hands of Odessa Stone, the Junker Queen. This, along with elements of their physiology, suggests that the demons were once integral parts of the Omnium's production process, and were attempting to replicate their original purpose by creating new, yet incomplete or feral, Omnics, which they used to wage war against the Junkers for the destruction of their home, their mother, or perhaps their original body. The burning lands once roiled with the fires of half-remembered industry, and the demons cried out in vengeful fury, until all was turned to rust. Subscribe to the channel if you want an actual explanation. Oh, okay, with that out of the way, we need to separate people by... Let's do like that. No, let's actually do that. Oh, and let's go all the way up like here. Oh! I threw her in the list way too early. Iggy has actually... She's one of the most proven characters to use the Iris. At the end of London Calling, Iggy gathers the entirety of the London underworld together, and they listen to Lust for Life on repeat for about a week straight. And within that week's time, Tracer recovers from what's meant to be like a pretty near fatal gunshot wound.
thing bounced around inside her chest cavity and all sorts. She couldn't rewind out of it. You shouldn't recover from that in a week. Like, when I first read the story, it felt like it was really unearned and like there were no actual consequences for what Tracer did, stepping in front of a bullet for Iggy. But then you actually read the little bit, and Tracer is there like, yeah, Iggy willing me to be better worked through a specific medium that is relative to the both of us. Like, Iggy Pop is the first vinyl that Tracer gave to Iggy, and the song is called Lust for Life, and they weren't even in the same place. Just Iggy and the rest of the London underworld, a big group of Omnics that agreed with Iggy's intent to wish Tracer getting better, and they all listened to Lust for Life on repeat for a week, and Tracer did get better? Yeah, Iggy used the Iris. I'm sorry that talking about Omnic death rushed me into placing one of my favourite characters in the Overwatch universe.
She's basically on track to become the new leader of the London underworld. She's got the flesh of one of her friends welded to her chest. She's metal as fuck.
Iggy is, to me, one of the definite characters that has used the Iris. Bob is one of these sort of maybes. There's going to be more in this category. Yeah, okay, this seems like a pretty nice delineation thus far. This thing! The Nanoswarm in Oasis. If you haven't noticed, go look at this thing. It's not just a ferrofluid. Look at the microscope by it. It's tiny little Omnics. It feels to me more like they're being studied rather than this is just a robot thing that they've made, maybe?
Like, this thing could be a physical representation of the Iris for all we know. So that's why I lean a little bit more towards Omnic, never mind the sort of whole hive mind aesthetic that's going on there, right?
Fox Girl! Oh no, now we need to talk about the fucking... Oh, now we need to talk about the Shimada. Oh no. My best guess is that all of them are using cybernetics. And the energy sort of emitting properties that all of the dragons and the fox share, at least as far as you know from the Shimada brothers, comes from their dragon tattoos. It is something that is like embedded into their skin to help them direct, control, manipulate, produce energy, or at least transfer energy,
in a manner similar to the concept of chi.
Fox Girl here emits a fox that can grant kinetic energy to those around it when it leaves a path that speed boosts you, that is, directing kinetic energy into your feet. As long as the fox is using the same tech, which, I mean, it's incredibly unlikely that Yamagami-san isn't using the same tech. Right, her parents made the weapons for and trained the Shimada. Yeah, she's using the same stuff. And I think it makes more sense for it to always be a cybernetic implant, some sort of like nanotech lattice that gets embedded under the skin that allows the user to redirect bodily energy and store it to emit in forms such as kinetic energy, heat energy, light energy, all sorts. It obviously could have some delineations with other power systems in the Overwatch universe, but at the moment it does stand as its own general thing. Something like Vishkar's Hard Light is getting very close. They're both manipulations of a fundamental element, light, to produce different properties. Kinetic energy, heat energy, right? You could quite happily argue that implementing kinetic energy through hard light is what lets hard light work. These could be the exact same thing, and you obviously don't need to be a cyborg to use hard light. All of these people seem to be creating much more specific and nuanced abilities because of the cybernetic element of it. If they're cyborgs, we don't know yet. Wait for Beta 3 and the release of Fox Girl. Geiger! Oh, some of the side characters from Junkertown. Yes, definitely a cyborg. Like, we can tell he's a cyborg. He has a cybernetic prosthetic on one arm. But he also doesn't seem to be able to speak. He wears a mask all the time. He's a scavenger, so he's probably out in the wasteland a lot. I'm going to say that Geiger isn't just a cyborg. He's probably a mutant as well. The Gishin. Oh, damn. When you have to go, like, there. The Gishin are their own sort of separate faction, but they've come from their one very specific Omnium. It seems to have developed on its own over time. These things, it feels weird for me to do that. again. There are some specific instances where I think this will happen. We obviously just have to come to them. I think that the Kishin should go somewhere like here. Maybe there. I think that's better. Their potential for sentience is, like, to me, equal on that with Bastion, unless they're being produced recently, which means they haven't been involved in the Awakening, which would then make them, right? But they're also referred to as Omnics, and I don't like the use of the word Omnic as just sort of like these were made from an Omnium, or they're by the Omnica Corporation. No, Omnic suggests that, like, sapience, like, agency, like, sentience. That's what that word is really there for. I'm willing to put the Kishin here. Like, the Kishin Kaiju, the giant thing, would be a better thing to put in here if I had included it in the tier list, and that's totally ignoring what the South China Sea Omnium even is, whether they're the same thing or not. But at least if you take the Kishin as a whole, they do seem to get backup from Null Sector in New Blood 5, which to me, again, frames the idea of parties that have, like, a shared belief. If you don't believe something, then you are agencyless, right? Pretty confident I'd call them Omnics. Oh, the Cyber Dog! Ha, the Cyber Dogs! This is obviously the dog from Fallout New Vegas. But it's here to represent one of my favourite bits from Hero of Nubani novel, where there's a black market arms dealer who has a cyber brain that lets him control two dogs with cyber brains. It's pretty fucked up, if you ask me. It's just a cool element in the Overwatch universe I don't think many people actually know. Junker Queen. I'm just going to call it straight. She's a mutant. She's got 425 health at base. Like, mechanics don't often, like, come into this. Some characters, like, thinking about it in this way, like, someone like Roadhog has, like, 700 health in Overwatch 2. And the average human has, like, 150 to 200. That is, like, that is just always given as a spread. I mean, even plenty of these have that. The Junker Queen not only is way tougher than the average person, right? I think that you can explain her self-heal. I think the Junker Queen, like someone like Soldier 76, she has a healing factor. But I think that if you use the game again to sort of represent how it actually makes sense, whenever she deals wounds, she gets a self-heal, right? To me, that's then adrenaline. That is her own body, like, when she wounds an enemy and she gets excited about the prospect of killing the enemy, her body, like the adrenaline that her body releases, pushes her body's healing factor into overdrive. I'd argue the Junker Queen is full-on a mutant. Junkrat could be a mutant. His hair is always on fire. That's a very strange thing. There's also, like, the fact that he carries self-kill bombs. I don't want to say the word. He's got suicide bombs. Why would you have those if you can't do that? Do you know what I mean? I really like the idea that Junkrat has mutated enough in the Outland that if you were to, like, completely blow him up, his body would just sort of reform from goop. There's something about, like, the combustion reaction that allows him to reform from any sort of, like, fatal damage or something crazy like that. It's a wacko sci-fi universe. Roll with it, right? But no, as there's nothing, like, definite or nothing very obvious specifically, no, we're going to knock Junkrat down to Cyborg with his 2 prosthetics. Case. Case can go... We don't... No, you're actually pretty... yeah, let's actually look at it and sort of the degree of sapience you've actually seen from them. Bars hasn't spoken yet. Lizzie has spoken a lot. Obviously from Bastion down, but then more emerging. We'll leave that as it is. That's fine. Case is connected to Null Sector. He was evidently, like, sent as a plant into the London underworld to try and capitalize on the death of Mondatta, sow seeds of resentment among the Omnics, cause more chaos, yada yada. He was going to blow the underworld up. He was going to use their own power system, the grid, to blow up all the underworld Omnics and a bunch of humans. It is kind of chaos for chaos' sake. Case, your hardline ideology really took over to the point of detrimenting your ultimate cause here, bro. But that's the fundamental flaw to be explored with this guy, and it's not that his basis is entirely wrong. This guy definitely is an Omnic with some pretty clear opinions on the world, actually. Like, Yeah, we're gonna leave you up there. Kanezaka. Another human. Another pure human. Although, she does have... Let's throw these guys in here. Let's put you... That's political maneuvering. You're going up, like, here with this. Like, echo yours... Oh, no, we'll put you here. That actually makes a lot more sense. There we go. Yeah. This Omnic, whoever they are, is engaging in political subterfuge with Kanezaka, providing her with some kind of Omnic tech, which you can see in Sombra's conspiracy web is being used to power their new mechs. They are both war profiteering, which, hey, if you're up to the sort of the intellect and agency to, like, war profiteer, Jesus Christ, that's scary. Oh, Leonora Botruvio, get in there. Somebody please explain to me what, like, half of her statues are.
Because not only do most of them float seemingly unassisted, plenty of them are moving independently in maybe some form of perpetual motion. They all make very unique sounds, and several of them interact with light in some pretty strange ways. Some of these sculptures are definitely transferring energy consistently in some fashion, and at least one of them seems to have a degree of its own memory.
I don't know what to make of that exactly. It'd be really interesting to hear Sigma's take on her pieces, because he recently made the point that, like, hey, Zen, you're not really manipulating gravity, but you float. What the fuck's up with that? And Zen's like, yeah, because I float, bitch. I defy your reality and substitute my own. And Sigma's like, oh, okay. Yeah, I would like to hear maybe just some inference from Sigma as to, these fantastic sculptures, how they defy the laws of gravity. So, just something like that. Like, I don't think what she been doing is entirely normal. Like, she's obviously a being with, like, a high degree of sapience to be creating art, right? Like, it's an expression of the self. Yeah, that shit is... That's leaning you right into using the iris, my guy. Like, if you have a conduit for an expression of the purest self that
other Omnics can get behind, you're probably channeling the iris.
Oh, this gal. I really like that. I'm really interested about this person. The Los Muertos Tattooist is what I keep calling her. This is the lady who installs, like, a supercomputer into Sombra's spine. Does all the crazy shit with her brain and what have you. Just to show you some of the other more niche but quite interesting sort of cybernetic implementations of the Overwatch universe. Lucio, this was actually kind of a weird one for a while, because we didn't know. Like, a lot of people thought that he was actually a cyborg. He has weird skate legs. That would actually be a really cool place to represent more characters with disabilities, at least something like that. But no, Lucio just has his ludicrously oversized skate boots. Lunar. Yeah, I mean, she's an artist. She's very possibly engaged in her own political subterfuge, the whole sort of Paris Omnic rebellion sort of thing. Yep, Link 17 has been following Sombra for a long time. A very talented hacker, very strong beliefs in what it means to be Omnic, but nothing unusual. Nothing unusual just yet. Mason Howell, seemingly just a human. One of the most unremarkable characters in the whole of Junkertown.
I know you're a loose end, Mason Howell. You're probably going to resurrect the 5 metal demons or something really stupid, but
I don't care about you. Mauga is a mutant. Supposedly, all of the Talon heavy assaults have been genetically engineered, but they use an exoskeleton, whereas the Enforcers are said to be using cybernetic and genetic enhancements. So, I mean, my tier list sort of loses a bit of clarity there. Let's throw you down in there, because these guys actually have, like, an inherent shield generator. They're almost like Doomfist in that way. Oh god, oh wow, no, let's come back to you when we do Reaper and Moira, because shit, yeah. These guys are probably just human. Like, it's very possible that Talon soldiers get some sort of genetic enhancements, but it could be very possible, same what sort of the hypothesis is for BAP, that there's no obvious mutations, probably just a normal person. Maximilian, get up there, you bastard. Hey, yeah, Case, we're gonna throw you down. No, you engaged in some pretty gnarly shit, fine. Yeah, Maximilian, an Omnic with very personal motivation, a high degree of complication when it comes to the morals and ethics of him involving his own kind in war and all shit like that. He's also recently been revealed to be the owner of all the mysterious Greek statues, whatever the hell those mean. He's actually tied to a bunch of existing maps in the game and upcoming ones in Overwatch 2. He has teased animations for Overwatch 2. This guy's going to be important. He is one of my favorites. Nothing special yet, though. Cassidy. Cassidy is a cyborg. Just the one replacement arm. It doesn't really do anything for him. It's more of a prosthetic than anything, really. You could argue maybe there's something going on with Deadeye, that maybe he's had some cybernetic eye implants, sort of like Anna. But I'm pretty sure that aside from his prosthetic arm, Cassidy is pretty standard as it goes. May. Yeah, I'm gonna again, controversial. There's nothing that says she's a mutant. I know. May, I think, is a mutant because of her reaction to cryogenic freezing. Especially if she freezes herself now, her body repairs itself. Again, in a similar idea to what that I proposed for Junkrat, in that is the presence of heat, the combustion reaction that interacts with a form of self-healing, like a healing factor. I think May's is the opposite. I think it's almost perhaps something that could have been done purposefully, or it's something that has just happened over time with exposure. Her body has adapted to rapidly repair itself in the presence of extremely low temperatures. Her body shuts off any requirements to anything else that it needs to do, because that's what that sort of thing allows your body to do, especially if she's like flash freezing. Okay, in sci-fi, ignore modern actual cryogenics. May, yeah, I'd argue May's form of self-healing comes from an inherent mutation that involves cryogenics. Mercy. Now, I really want to put Mercy in Mutant, just because it'd be interesting. Like, say, if Resurrect worked through siphoning out her lifespan via the Valkyrie suit or something weird like that. But no, it sort of goes against the whole, like, ethical thing. Like, the balance of her ethics is that, no, she would never actually mess with her own body to that degree. It gives her the distinction from, no, we're not doing you yet, Moira. We will do you shortly. Okay, fine. Yeah, I think that Mercy is purely a human. The Valkyrie suit heals her, allows her to fly, but that is just a piece of equipment. It's the same thing as, like, the Heavy Assault. They've been genetically mutated to be big, like Mauga, and Mauga can literally, like, rip through body armor with his bare hands, to give you the context for how much these guys get genetically augmented. But they're genetically augmented to be big to use these big-ass exosuits. But they're just exosuits, same thing as the Valkyrie suit is. Slightly different one, on that very note, I think Mary is a cyborg, like a permanent cyborg. She obviously has these lens things installed on the top of her head. She's a tinker, so I assume that's for engaging in her work. But we never see her outside of this Walker mech. It also doesn't have, like, a cover on it, like Mason Howells did. It doesn't feel like a mech. It feels like an exosuit, like a power suit that she needs to walk around. Admittedly, I'm gutted we didn't have the alien line from her, like, let go of her, you bitch. That's very clearly what Mary's suit is, like, styled off to my mind. But the fact that she never leaves it, that we see her engaging in just normal activities in it, yeah, I think Mary might actually be a representation of a disabled character. This might be a mutation because of the Outback. Don't know, but I think she's a permanent cyborg because she actually needs the suit to get around. Damn. Like, I want to put Moira down here. Because, no, she's there. I mean, she's the one mutating everybody, right? You've seen her arm. She's certainly a mutant. However, no, we need Reaper to do this as well. Yeah, okay, let's throw these two in here. Yeah, we're getting weird. No. That. Yes. The thing that really makes me want to put these two up in altered, as in beings that can be affected differently by the fundamental physics of the universe, right, is in Code of Violence, the recent Reaper short story. There is one point where Reaper describes using Shadow Step. And it's almost like he burns the particles of himself to a distant point. He feels himself like simmering and singeing and sort of popping from the inside. he, like, superpositions. Wraith form was obviously, no, he turns to smoke. He turns into, like, particulates. That's why he can't then be damaged. Like, and that it works with how his body sort of regenerates and degenerates permanently, all that shit. Like, that makes sense. But then when you consider how Shadow Step, like, functions in-game, how it's described as almost like quantum entangling himself into a shadow, or, like, falling through his own shadow. He can represent himself in a 4th dimension. Reaper's pretty nuts. And then when Moira's Fade can seemingly remove her from reality, to an extent, like, I don't know what that is. She collapses herself into the negative space of a Dirac Sea, maybe? I really don't know what she's doing there. She's meant to be based, like, thoroughly in genetics. So whether she is just breaking herself down into, like, nanoparticulate matter, or she can go down to, like, her subatomic particles or something like that, that she's quantum teleporting or quantum entangling herself. Yeah, these two are very clear. They're both just permanently, differently affected by the fundamental physical laws of the universe. Both of them have to wear tech to actually keep that in line. Moira seems to use tech to just augment the natural abilities that she has. Reaper doesn't need any tech to do what he does. There's a lot of weird, but they're just not mutants, man. It's just such a jump. Null Hector! Let's get you up there. Yeah, Null Hector, an Omnic with a very clear philosophy and a very clear goal. Supposedly fights for his kind. Yeah, definitely an Omnic. I mean, are you the kind of Omnic that we're probably going to see up here? Like, we should. Yeah, I mean, if this is one of your big bads, you better give him Moira's powers, I'll say that much. Oh, now we can get into some of the interesting ones. Right, here is one of our first, to me, strange delineations. The general troops of Null Sector are referred to regularly within all the, like, recent Overwatch 2 media as robots, which I think is fine. I think that for Omnics to make robots is like, yeah, it's just an advantage of our kind. We don't have to think. We don't have to suffer. We can just wage war. That's what we're here to do. I think the main troops of Null Sector have, as a blessing, not been given consciousness. They're just tools at this point. However, there are some way more specific-looking units, say like the Wraith, or what we originally called the Wraith, the one wielding the scythe. There was like a sage-looking guy. There was like a floaty dude with a chakram. Like, there were a collection of Omnics that looked like they were more than just robots. They seemed to have a sense of actual, like, personal style and, like, attitude to them. They seemed to be beings. Do you know what I mean? And especially, like, the new Wraith model, or the Puller, if you want to call it that. Most of the design could just be a robotic body, and there's no real, like, actual mind in there. It's just orders to kill. It's that bandana over the eyes. It's that actual sort of, like, piece of cloth with religious markings drawn on it that makes me think that this is a being that follows the Iris. It's even closing its own eyes. This is getting bloodborne on us, right? Like, yeah, I think there is a clear delineation in some of these forces here. In the, you know what, let's do that to make this a little more interesting. In fact, we'll do that because I reckon that the feral Omnics are way closer to having agency than the grunt forces. But there seem to be members of their higher-ups that seem to have their own agency. That's good. It shouldn't just be Null Sector and Case, because Case sucks. No, he doesn't suck. He's got some actually really good points. He just doesn't actualize on them really well. And Null Hector we've met once. Like, who cares at this point? Oh, yes, now I get to be controversial again. Woo! Orisa has used the Iris. Please explain to me how her spears work. You can't. You just can't. Spears don't do that. Like, they don't do that shit. You can't create a vacuum by spinning a spear. You can't logically destroy mini graviton surges or any other crazy thing just by spinning a spear. You also, when you stab a spear in the ground, does it usually explode? Does spears often just appear in your hand as if they don't care about the states of matter or energy? I didn't think so. Yeah, Orisa has used the Iris. Sombra has kidnapped her at the end of Hero of Numbani. That is a theory, but I'm so right. Fight me. And she's going to go to Nepal, and she's going to get, like, Iris spears made for by the temple itself, or some crazy bullshit. That much is all me spouting bullshit at you. has Orisa used the Iris? Yeah, probably. Like, have you seen her new abilities? I shouldn't have to say more than that, as far as concerned. Oh, the Paris criminals! Let's stick out with Lunar. They're obviously, like, fighting for a cause. They're probably linked to Lunar. I like this little group up here. They've got something that they stand for. And they're not being as wishy-washy about it and nice about it as some people can. They're actually getting to the heart of the issues sometimes. Farah! Farah is just a straight-up human. Nice and easy. Girl's got attitude, but she got no special powers. I don't need to say anything more about that. Pushbot! Pushbot is a robot. I think that's clear by the name. Reinhardt. Oh, controversial time! Reinhardt's a mutant. Fight me. There's no way... Same thing as Mauga. There's no way that not just Reinhardt, but all the Crusaders are that big. They're all that big. And they're all that big to wear super kick-ass massive power armor. Reinhardt's a space marine. He's been genetically augmented to wear power armor. He's a fucking space marine. Like, that should be really clear. Again, he's got like 300 health with the then armor on top and all stuff like that. Again, mechanics don't always usually come into it. But, yeah, Reinhardt is an abnormally big dude. Man's been mutated, I tell thee now. Same as, oh my god, this guy. Roadhog has been mutated to fucking back. Like, how the guy has 700 health. He has made a compound that allows him to restore half his health in, like, one instant. That is not a normal bodily reaction to have. It's obviously been caused by the experience in the Outback, the latent radiation, all that sort of shit. Roadhog's a mutant, man. Sanjay kind of has to be human for his sort of, like, thing to work. He's meant to be this really seemingly boring and almost, like, robotic behind the eyes person, but that's meant to be a very clear indication of his humanity, or lack thereof, or, hey, however you want to represent that. Sojourn is one of the most cybernetically enhanced characters in the cast. In fact, we should really sort this out a little, because, yeah, those two are at the top, and Sojourn is very happy with her shtick compared to Genji. She has different reasoning, she has a different, like, outlook on things because of it, but yeah, these two are way, way, way more significantly augmented than, I mean, Hanzo and Fox Girl, we don't even know. That's just a supposition. We know that these guys are. Yeah, wow. Mary probably wants to jump up like a little chunk. Doomfist has a ton. Cyberbrains, yeah, you guys can actually go way down. Soldier! We know full well he's a mutant. He's from basically the Super Soldier program. He's Captain America. Like, he's been genetically engineered. He is genetically mutated. It's just nice to see how many more characters there are in this lineup than I actually thought. Sombra's actually, like, here. Let's do that. Because Sombra, again, has a supercomputer in her spine, and she's possibly got a cyber brain. Like, that maybe puts her, like, anywhere from there to, like, here to, like, Sombra could make, I bet you she could make an AI copy of her entire self and put it in a different body. Or in no body. Send it out into the internet. I bet you there's an AI clone of Sombra already in the internet. I just fucking bet you there is. Sombra is like one of the, again, really heavy cyborg. Snowball! Controversial. Snowball is not a drone, not a robot. Snowball has shown elements of self-sacrifice, the desire to play, the desire for connection. Snowball is an Omnic. Snowball is a thing, is a being. Like, Snowball is an entity in their own right. Sven! Oh wow, we haven't seen you in a while. You're probably never going to be important again. Maybe you're a cyborg? I don't think it's no, because your whole thing is about weaponry. Again, like, themes, like, character thematics can really come into this as well. Yeah, his desire to sort of rely on weapons and the manipulation of countries and all that stuff. You need that character to be human. It's the same sort of thematic ideal as Sanjay here. Symmetra! Only one cybernetic, but it's a pretty dope cybernetic. Yeah, she can create hard light from her hands, and part of her whole shtick is that she's better at manipulating hard light when she can, like, physically interact with it. I'm gonna do this. Yeah. Pretty... Even though she is not as heavily cyberized as, like, these four,
her cyberization is impactful. Not that replacement hands or the ability to walk again isn't also impactful, right?
Oh, damn, these guys again. Oh, shit, yeah. That's why I left them. Because these two, yeah, these two have fade powers. This one can shadow step. And these, the assassins especially, have been mutated and mentally conditioned and broken beyond. Yeah, they're not okay. They are just not okay. There could even be some sort of like slipstream tech that's being used with them as well. I really, really don't know. Torbjorn, Cyborg, and again, a really useful cybernetic, producing molten metal that he can use for engineering. That's actually pretty sick. It has a ton of versatile uses. That's a really cool
cybernetic augment. Not to take away from how useful just having a prosthetic would be in the first place, right?
Widowmaker. Yep, definitely a mutant. Just definitely a mutant. Her skin's blue. And that, we know that that's a mutation from them slowing her heart rate and fucking with it. They've done a ton of mental conditioning on her as well. She's not in a great place.
Although there are plenty of suggestions that her mental conditioning is wearing off, I also think that there's more to learn about her assassination of Gerard. I feel it's likely way more complicated than we first knew. There are suggestions that there is much more to know about Gerard than any of us are privy to at present. Concerning Gerard, he's human too, and obviously also dead, but the main crux of the issue, I think, with Gerard is exactly who he was and what actually he was about. He's been painted perhaps a little too good to be true, if you know what I mean.
Winston. It's literally the whole point of Horizon Lunar Colony. Yeah, they're both like here. Oh yeah, superpowers. No, that makes more sense. Like, okay, we'll put him up there. Put all the healing factor people together. Then the mutations, then the Beeg people. Yeah, the physical mutations, and then the Beeg people. Yeah, and the mental mutations. Yeah, it all works. Oh, wow. Let's see, part of me's doing this to get this all ready for when you actually read it at the end. Wrecking Ball's mech. It has a very limited AI. It's one I'm very happy to call a robot, but if anyone ever does another awakening, if anyone ever does another awakening, that'd be kind of interesting to have Wrecking Ball like actually arguing with his mech and stuff. Zarya, another character who it is very key, very, very key that she is specifically human. It's just a big part of the thematics of her character. She gets by on hard work and the limits of human potential. She doesn't want to cheat her way through like she feels some cyborgs might have done. Do you know? And then our boy, there he is. Aurora was the first Omnic to use the Iris by creating it, right? That makes sense, yeah. Zen is our example of Iris use in the Overwatch universe. Everything he does, they all say, hey man, that doesn't make any sense. It's like magic. And he's there like, yeah, I know, but it isn't. I have already made at least one video explaining how I think the Iris works. Again, as you now see from all this is the kind of thing that warrants some exploration. We're going to talk about this again, in maybe some more specific detail about how exactly maybe Zenyatta himself works, or then about how the Iris itself allows for all of these things to work. And maybe how then some characters could actually start jumping into the Iris themselves. That'd be really interesting. Mondatta, fuck. Yeah, I mean, if Zen could use the Iris, then Mondatta must have been able to. Right? Okay, let's put Mondatta, because it's a supposition, and we've got the characters interacting with death together. Yeah, Mondatta definitely, he must have done. We've got no proof. Again, inference and all that shit, right? Like, isn't it way more fun to just be there like, oh, well, yeah, duh, of course Mondatta must have been able to use the Iris. He's fucking Zenyatta's master, right? Yeah, man, or maybe not master, they were at least, like, equals. they're named what they are for a bloody reason, right? And then the real question I'm coming to here is, what do you reckon Mondatta's use of the Iris would have been? I would really like to hear anyone's ideas on that. But with all this said, we've pointed out that we need to explore the Shimada brothers. There's definitely some interesting shit going on down with the Junkers and the feral Omnics and all that shenanigans. There's definitely something to discuss there. What has been going on with Orisa, how different she is now, why I think Sombra turns up at the end of Hero Numbani and not Sojourn. That's another video for another day. The dynamics of like the London underworld and stuff. Going back to London Calling recently, this is a way better story than I gave it credit for. Same for New Blood, the last 2 comic series. When you actually read them all the way through, then they're actually really good. Yeah, there's also the amount of expansion they've been doing on the Iris recently. Zen has been increasingly important in advertising for Overwatch 2. There's that new Nepal map. There's that supposedly like first PvE mission that we're going to be looking at that definitely seems to be going to Nepal. We've already seen that the India map is also about getting Zen away from Talon. Like, there's a lot going on here that I think they're actually trying to consolidate on not explaining the Omnic crisis properly, letting all the sort of esoteric stuff that they wanted the fandom to make up their own minds about. They're now actually kind of going into it. That's what it seems like some of this stuff is going on with here. Anubis could totally be important. I've got an old video on them. Go watch that, see how they actually could be really important for Overwatch 2, relating to like Null Hector and stuff. Yeah, this video was nice to get me back into things. I haven't spoken about Overwatch in a long ass time. I think the last video I made was on Iggy. So to get to jump back in like this and be there like, oh, there's some cool shit over there. Oh, what the fuck is this thing? Like, yeah, this is actually pretty fun. I will leave the tier list at this point. Please take it as you will. Any characters you think should go in different tiers, anyone that, again, I missed out that you think would be really interesting to discuss, chuck them down in the comments. I hope you've all enjoyed yourselves today. I hope you're all looking forward to Overwatch 2, especially with the kind of story progress we could get with the PvE. But with that, I've been Euclidean Vision, a guy who's been horribly absent for a very long time. Take care of yourselves out there, teammates, and may the glorious light of Best Girl shine within you. Bye-bye.